You see the target earlier than expected, standing under a flickering streetlight that hums with a low electrical buzz, the kind that settles into your ears if you stay still long enough. Your watch reads 1912. The file said 1930, 18 minutes too early, or you're late. The system doesn't clarify which. You slow your breathing, not because you're nervous, but because rhythm matters. Distance, 47 meters. Line of sight, partially obstructed. Civilian density, moderate. You don't move. Movement is commitment, and commitment without full data is how operators disappear. The target checks their phone, shifts weight from one foot to another, unaware or pretending to be. You've seen both. It makes no difference. What matters is pattern, and this is already off pattern. Nothing ever aligns perfectly. That's the first rule you learned, though no one ever said it out loud. You didn't enter this life through a door. There was no moment where you agreed to it in clear terms. It began with a message, short, precise, stripped of identity. A task with coordinates, a time window, and a number. $8,000. Half before, half after. No negotiation, no signature. You told yourself it was temporary, a single correction in a system you didn't fully understand. The first job was clean, mechanical. You followed the instructions exactly as given. You observed for 36 hours, noted routines, calculated blind spots, executed without deviation. When it was done, the confirmation came as a silent transfer. No words, no acknowledgement, just numbers adjusting in an account that wasn't tied to your real name. That was the only validation you received, and it was enough. Not because of the money, but because of the precision. The system worked, and you were inside it now. The second job came faster, then a third. By month 6, you stopped marking time in days. You measured it in assignments completed, in patterns recognized, in mistakes avoided. Payments increased gradually. $12,000, $18,000, $24,000. Not enough to draw attention, but enough to keep you compliant. You learned quickly that the system doesn't reward excellence, it rewards consistency. You were never praised, you were simply used again. That was your promotion. No ceremony, no acknowledgement, just more complex files, tighter windows, and fewer margins for error. By year 2, your routine had stabilized into something that resembled structure. You rotated locations every 72 hours, sometimes less if the environment felt unstable. Hotels became placeholders. Apartments were temporary shells. You never unpacked fully. Everything you owned had to fit into one case, under 14 kilograms. Weight mattered. Mobility mattered more. You stopped carrying anything that didn't serve a function. Personal items were liabilities. Photos could be traced. Objects could be remembered. You reduced yourself to essentials, tools, documents, currency fragments split across accounts and jurisdictions. Identity became modular. You weren't a person moving through places. You were a function adapting to conditions. The system revealed itself slowly, not as a hierarchy, but as a series of layers that never fully connected. Handlers communicated through encrypted relays, never directly. Instructions passed through at least 3 nodes before reaching you. Payments were fragmented, 5,000 from one source, 9,000 from another, always staggered, always clean on the surface. You understood that no single point held the full picture. That was intentional. It meant that if one part failed, the rest would continue, including you or without you. There were rules, but they existed as patterns rather than statements. Never remain in one operational zone longer than 72 hours. Never repeat a method twice in succession. Never establish contact beyond the assigned channel. Never question incomplete data. Adapt to it. Temperature influenced behavior more than people realized. Below 10 degrees Celsius, movement decreased, fewer witnesses. Above 30 degrees Celsius, unpredictability increased, short tempers, erratic patterns. You adjusted your timing accordingly. These weren't guidelines, they were survival metrics. By year 4, you had moved from disposable to dependable, not valuable. That distinction was important. Valuable assets are protected. Dependable ones are simply expected to perform. Your assignments became quieter, fewer variables but higher stakes. You noticed that the files contained less explanation, not because there was less to know, but because you were expected to fill the gaps yourself. This is where creative compliance became necessary. You followed instructions, but not literally. A time window of 20 to 2100 meant you arrived at 1830. A single target meant you prepared for two. You learned to read what wasn't written.